Welcome, everybody, to the Comics Aficionados. I'm your host, Wes, as always, and we got a great show for you today. Got a terrific panel. With us again is Larry Bernard. What's going on, Larry?
Everything's going up kind of awesome today.
Oh, nice. A little Lego movie reference?
Exactly. Exactly.
Also, we got the very controversial Lance. What's going on, buddy?
Not much. How are you? Enjoying the 7-degree weather in Wisconsin at the moment.
Oh, it's a nice balmy 90 degrees here. Perfect for the winter. Also with us, Doc. What's going on, man?
Not too much, guys. How's everything this morning?
I think we're doing all right. Finally, we got Pele, the retailer. What's going on, buddy?
It's going pretty well. I think I was sick most of the week, but I'm feeling better today, so hopefully I won't fall apart here.
Nice. Well, we need you for this show. So basically, we're going to be talking about the DC Black Label rumors about them moving their classic heroes during the 5G initiative. Then we're going to talk about some Iron Man, and then we're going to talk a little bit about New Mutants #1 and X-Force #1. But let's start out with the main event. We'll talk about the DC Comics Black Label pricing rumors. There are rumors that Dan Didio and DC Comics are moving classic DC heroes to Black Label during the 2020 5G initiative, basically to fleece readers who refuse to read their new, younger, more diverse character lineup with absurd prices. Larry, what are your thoughts on these rumors?
Well, I think the rumor is terrible on multiple different fronts. The big one is I really like the idea of Black Label of like a more prestige format line. So we say, hey, Grant Morrison, why don't you just write something really interesting about Dr. Midnight? Just do something fun and interesting with Dr. Midnight. It's going to be a prestige run. Everybody's going to like it. They're going to buy it. That idea I liked, but they're clouding up the brand they're creating with Black Label if they're going to do this strategy. And like the Joker movie was a great example of what the DC Black Label brand's ethos is. Interesting stories from really good storytellers telling a slightly off-kilter version of the DC universe. Also, I mean, the Black Label books are a little bigger than standard books, so when you average it out, it's not that terrible of a price thing, but psychologically, that's a discount day at AMC's movie ticket. So that's literally one movie ticket for a comic book. I don't think even at 60 pages for a quote-unquote normal comic book, that's a good value transaction.
Mm-hmm. Doc, what are your thoughts on this, man?
I think that DC is trying to set itself on fire, and it just keeps. It's like, ooh, this is wet. Maybe I'm dancing in the rain. No, it's gasoline. Stop it. Bunch of clowns. Oh, it's always every single time. It's not a stupid idea when we do it. That's the way it seems like every single comic professional ends up thinking.
And it's so weird how DC was making all of these decisions. They became the top in market share, and then they decided to make the exact opposite decisions, and everything's on fire all of a sudden. I wonder if these two things are correlated.
I don't know. I mean, as I said a while ago, all DC had to do was not F up, and they would have probably kept the lead or been very, very close, even if Marvel, got their crap together and started, producing decent stuff. They would have been really close. It would have been a good kind of race. But then they just made all of the stupid it's like they went for 2 years without making dumb decisions, and then they had an allotment of stupid decisions that they had to make, and then they made them all at once. And it appears like this is another one. I mean, look, if they're doing it this way, Black Label actually kind of makes sense. It's the comics you really want to read.
Yeah.
All the rest of it is, well, we're just giving it to you. Black Label is the comics you actually want to read.
Here's the benefit on this. I guess this will be my turn, but it'll be once a month comics. They'll be more expensive. They'll be a prestige format, but they'll be the ones that you actually want to read from the authors and from the writers and the artists that you want to buy anyway. So all the rest of the books, this is what I was telling my Diamond rep. I said, actually, this isn't bad. I said, I'm not going to order any of the regular books because nobody's going to buy them. And he's like, what? And I said, yeah, I'm not going to bother with that. It's garbage. I'm not going to buy that. I'm just going to get the Black Label books because I know that's what people are going to want anyway. I said, everybody will be happier that we'll be going to a monthly schedule. And he's just dead silence. It was dead silence on the phone. And he said, I don't think that's what they intended. And I said, well, I don't care. I said, you can tell them that. I said, I'm talking with other retailers and we're all in agreement on this. We're just going to buy the Black Label and the other stuff, they can just keep it and everybody will be happy. And he was dumbfounded. So,
I mean, like, they're going to do a Jonathan Kent Superman book probably as part of this new initiative.
Oh yeah.
So, like, if the character hadn't been ruined by Bendis, I would have at least gotten in on that one. But then
that's
Bendis
the kind of thing that should take place in the future, though, not something in the present tense. That I don't understand why Jonathan Kent. Like, that should be a comic that takes place 50 years from now, or
5G is gonna be in the future.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So then that's gonna be all in the main titles, like the main Wonder Woman and Flash is all gonna be in the future for like a year or two.
Yeah.
So, well, it doesn't sound like it's gonna be a year. It's gonna be for a few months after the next crisis that's being set up by Doom War and the Year of the Villain.
So it's not like permanent?
Because
no, of course not.
I thought it was going to be actually kind of like when Marvel did all this and it took 2 years.
No.
So it's just going to be like an event in itself?
It's just going to be a stupid event stunt to tie into the last stupid event stunt and then set up the next stupid event stunt.
And they're hoping that something will stick.
Remember how Secret Wars went right into Dark Reign? That's how this next event, you're going to get your summer event by Snyder, and then it's going to go into 5G, which is probably going to be led mostly by Bendis.
Because what DC needed to do was follow up Final Crisis with Finaler Crisis.
The finalist crisis of all.
Yeah. The crisis of infinite finality.
And you know what's funny? I grew up reading comics when this sort of event stuff started happening, and it was cool because it was new. And that now that it's done like 4 or 5 times a year, it's like I'm tired.
Anyway, I want to finish my point there real quick. I've already talked this over with customers and stuff like that. They don't give a damn about any of the crisis, the 5G or anything like that. They just want their old heroes. And I'm just going to avoid the entire 5G, unless if customers want it, that's fine. I'll order whatever they want. They can have it, but I'm not going to order for the store any of those books because I don't. They're not important. They're not going to matter. There's nothing of substance in them anyway. So I'm just going to order the Black Label for that period of time for stock. And if anybody wants any of those, then they'll have to ask for them. And that way that my wallet will vote according to what I want and what customers want. And I don't see any other way to do it except for that. At DC, they're kind of like that puppy dog that, wants to hump your leg, and everything. And the only way that you can stop this, take the roll up newspaper and you smack it on the nose.
You just don't take it.
It's smack. Don't do that. Smack. Don't do that. And then pretty soon they learn, oh, I'm not supposed to do that. So please stop smacking me on the end of the nose. Please start buying our comics again. Okay, fine. I'll start buying the comics again.
They're an 80-year-old puppy.
Yeah, they're an 80-year-old puppy that just wants to hump your leg, and you just gotta smack, quit it, smack. And soon they'll get the hint, or they'll go bankrupt. Either way.
So I just want to point out that Dark Admiral March here has a great point. If you're watching the video, please give us a like. Also, super chats are available if you would like to help support the show. We always appreciate that. Paley, I basically decided, I plan on jumping in on Suicide Squad because Tom Taylor's DC work has actually been pretty good. But I'm kind of the mindset is like, why would I want to jump in on anything now? It feels like it's all pointless. Are you hearing that, from your customers as well?
Absolutely. It's like none of this matters. It's kind of like the previous Uncanny X-Men, how everybody knew for like the last 4 issues and 5 issues that none of it really mattered. They were going to be rebooting anyway.
Except for Rob Liefeld when he was doing something.
But anyway, they just said, no, I'm not buying it. Go ahead and take it off my list. And I ended up with a whole bunch of Uncanny X-Men that are, still in the bargain bins. People don't want them. And, it's just the way of the world. It's the way it's going to happen all over again.
Well, I think the problem is going to be that it's going down the wrong path. I understand it's 60 pages. I understand that it's triple the content for double the price. Cool, that's fine. Whatever. I don't care. $8 is a recipe for disaster. At the end of the day, it really is.
Well, it depends on the size. It depends if it's a 64-page or 80-page book really, once a month.
It doesn't really matter, though.
Yeah, it does.
No, it doesn't. In the long term, it's bad. In the short term, it's fine. Nobody cares. The problem is you will never get people trying stuff at $8.
Are you talking about the Black Label titles?
I'm talking about anything. It doesn't matter how much content you give people. You're not going to get people.
That doesn't suss up with sales, though.
Okay, that you don't get new readers at high price points.
That's not factual. I'm sorry, Doc. It isn't, because I had people coming in for Batman Damned who hadn't bought comics before, and they were paying $7 for the book, and $8's not really much of a stretch beyond that, and it was pretty good, pretty good sized books.
If all your readers are already median in their 30s and adults, they're not going to really care about spending extra money for prestige format as long as the art and talent's top notch, in my opinion.
Yeah, as long as that's the way I look at it. If they go from twice a month to once a month and they give you the same content that you would have gotten at twice a month, but at the higher price with the better, higher price, better format, same amount of content, and it, averages out to the same price. You paid $4 a piece for the comics anyway. I don't,
Also, the Black Label comics seem to be actually going through multiple drafts so that they are more well written. The monthly comics
so far, yeah, but
I'm not sure that Frank Miller one went through multiple drafts.
Definitely not.
Well, okay, fine.
The editorial on some of the Black Label has been sketch, but usually though the artwork though and the is there. So I just
I do know Frank Miller did work on that story for like 2 years. I'm not saying that it was a good story. I'm just saying
Frank needed an editor.
That's
someone say, Frank, we love you. You're a living legend. You have broken more rules than most people have made in the writing business, but maybe you should break less of them. Stick to more conventional rules. Maybe this would make your story better.
I think he should clearly just go write the Punisher. I mean, that's all he has left in his voice as far as a comic book writer. His narrative quality is no longer suited for good characters. They're suited for almost bad or anti-hero type of characters.
There was a good skeleton for the Superman character in that story, but it was not put together well.
I just thought like the narration was completely wrong for Clark. It didn't even sound like him. It was so
well. That's because half the time it was Clark. Well, maybe not even half. Like a third of the time it was Clark, then maybe a third of the time was like another person. It was actually really hard to keep track of. I was like, who is talking now? All right, hold on one second. I just want to say thank you very much to SSJ Future Gohan 62093 for the $4.99 super chat. I have no issues paying $8 if these upcoming Black Label books like the look like current ones. I think they're really high quality. And that I will agree. I don't think there's been, this Frank Miller Superman Year One, I did not like the art in that. But every other Black Label book that I've read so far, including The Last God, which is basically their first ongoing series, has had excellent art quality, in my opinion. What did you think about that, Lance? Did you read that book yet?
Oh, yeah. I had it on my pull as soon as they solicited it, and I thought it was fantastic. And that is it's a $5 book, but you get a lot of back matter. And it sets up a whole kind of hard-edged fantasy universe that oftentimes, like a lot of the fantasy stuff, the reason why I don't really get into it is because it's all kind of like cliched happy elves and a dark force coming from the and it does have those tropes, but I just like the harder edge to it, you know. I thought it was a fantastic story, has interesting characters. I highly recommend The Last God for anybody who likes Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones. I think this is the comic book equivalent of those series, and it comes off better than adaptations of either of those have so far. Because some of the novel adaptations can be hard to adapt generally.
Now, thank you for letting me know about that. I want to add that to my list when I get to the shop later today. But you need to think about this the way the comic book companies are thinking about this. People in our age group are their dying market. They want to maximize their profit from us while they still got profit from us, and they want to build a new audience. So worst case scenario, if this experiment does well, and they move Legacy Heroes to a monthly prestige format thing, they could dump all of the stuff that they want to try to get the new audience with into a regular comic cycle. That is the way executives at DC are thinking. And if DC makes this work, Marvel will pull a stunt that's similar.
Well, if DC makes this work and people come into the shop and start buying comics, I think, congratulations, that's great. I want shops to thrive, and I want the industry to thrive.
It's just
I think this is a poor decision, but if it ends up working, I will give them a hand and eat some crow on it personally.
The reason I think at the moment that Marvel can't follow suit with this trend is they don't have the artists and they don't have the writing talent. You actually, they don't have the names to sell prestige format books right now. They have some guys who are in the middle, and then they have Hickman, and there's Donnie Cates, but they don't have Frank Miller. They don't have Brian Azzarello. They don't have Scott Snyder. They don't have Sean Gordon Murphy. They don't have these names that people actually like, oh my God, they're doing mature-rated Batman. I want it. A mature-rated Batman title will always sell 100,000 copies, no matter what format it is. I can't believe they haven't been doing it for the last 15 years. But people will always want to go for a harder edge Batman.
Until there's no continuity to there needs to be. Look, is Black Label going to have a continuity, or is it just going to be a smattering of prestige books?
Smattering.
Okay, then you're dead. You're dead in 5 years. Sorry. It won't work.
The positive of it is that there isn't going to be continuity, except for sequels to its own titles.
Doesn't matter. It'll be dead in 5 years.
Here's the thing. Continuity really matters in terms of Marvel, but I don't think continuity matters nearly as much in DC anymore. People look mostly for stories more than because the best-selling stories that DC has sold over the last 10 years have been out of continuity.
Yeah.
So
and that's
people just want this X story
only because there's a continuity to rely on. They want an they want an out of continuity story because it's something different. But if everything is different, then everything is the same. That's why it works. That from the customer psychology perspective, that's why.
Generally, though, anthology titles are generally out of continuity, and those have existed in comics for 50 years.
And they've failed, except for Marvel Comics Presents every single time. Marvel Comics Presents from about 1985 to 1995 was successful. Every other one failed.
You had Legends of the Dark Knight was around for 25 years. You had Savage Sword of Conan. You had What else did you have? There's this always there was typically a Superman anthology that was like Adventures of Superman.
But that was still a continuity book.
Well, as I was saying though, Dark Knight Returns was not continuity. Watchmen was not continuity for a really long time. You had, all Batman Damned, which blew the doors off of everything as far as prestige format's concerned. I don't see that DC really requires a hard continuity going forward to really sell, because the characters are so iconic. They've been around longer than any Marvel characters have. People, anything that continues on as far as a continuity story, people are like, oh, well, it's still Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman.
But wasn't that what we sold on Rebirth, was that we're establishing a new continuity that both respects the past and sets us forward on a new footing? Wasn't that why everybody got into Rebirth?
No, they got into Rebirth because New 52 was so awful, and they wanted they were kind of needing to have their fix. It was... New 52 was terrible. I mean, it wasn't just terrible in sales; it was terrible overall,
and terrible in art.
You had
choices were awful.
Art, Batman starting out New 52 was awesome. I mean, you had the Court of Owls and everything, and everybody's like, "Oh!" But then it just, you had apart from Sergeant Bats, a shout out to Sergeant Bats, who he loves Gordon Batman, but I'm sorry, it's just Gordon Batman just isn't it. But it was terrible. It's like there were some months where hardly sold any of them. The Trinity.
All three of the Trinity were just. We had Batman was Gordon, unrecognizable. Wonder Woman had that awful costume, and Superman was a brawler on the streets. It was the stupidest. The last year of those three main titles were have to be some of the most unpopular comics for all three.
Do you remember when they tried to sell Superman having an exploding power as a super huge big deal to the press? Superman giving a giant explosion.
It was essentially, it was so awful that, and that's what they've got basically right now again too, because they've made Batman so awful. And they've made Superman so awful that they have to do something else. I guess Wonder Woman's been sort of consistently mediocre for the last few years.
But we can't say they didn't warn us about Superman. They told us Bendis was coming. They did warn us.
Then you have, you've got the consistently terrible to mediocre. So, they're basically just shaking it up again like they did with New 52. It's just when the continuity is so awful, I guess that's the point really I want to make, is that yes, continuity for DC would be a great thing, but the problem is DC has in the last 20 years has not had good continuity except for Batman on spurts.
It doesn't need to have good continuity. It just has to have a flowing continuity, even if it selectively ignores some stuff. It needs to be the same character, because when you do prestige,
Elseworlds is the same.
For fuck's sake, let me finish, man. I haven't finished anything yet today.
All right, go ahead.
No, it only works. It needs to. Elseworlds is 750 different versions of characters. None of them are the same. Sean Gordon Murphy's Batman White Knight works because it's an alternative to continuity Batman. Dark Knight Returns works because it was an alternative to continuity Batman. Watchmen could have been published by literally any company, and it would have been successful because it's good, because it doesn't rely on even DC characters. They were entirely made up characters, and at best they were homages to Charlton characters. They might as well have been the Squadron Supreme. The point is that you only have success with out of continuity prestige format stuff when it's an alternative to your continuity. When everybody picks, when your only choice is, it's 8 different versions of Batman in the different prestige book that they're going to put out, and none of them actually matter. None of them connect in any way. There is no overarching story. You're dead in 5 years.
That's not saying that's what that's going to be, though.
Hold on.
If that's what it is, then they're dead.
All right, hold on. I just want to ask you about this, Doc. So one of the reasons that they open up this ultimate timeline where the fifth generation is the future, so the new heroes, is so that they can actually go back and selectively finish stories or tie things into them. If the classic heroes like Superman, Wonder Woman, if they go back into continuity and start maybe going into some of the older timelines and maybe adding some story to like the Silver Age Wonder Woman, do you think that would work?
Well, sure. I mean, that would be fine. I mean, because you're doing something that connects to everything. You're doing something that actually matters. It connects. It gives long-term readers some sort of payoff. It gives new readers a chance to go back and find something different. It's not just one and done storytelling. One and done storytelling is a great way to attract new readers and lose old readers. And that's the problem. It's a bad marketing strategy in the long term.
If only there was someone whose job it was to curate or perhaps edit continuity. Maybe we should call them editors. Maybe every comic book should have one of those. And maybe there should be an editor-in-chief whose job it is to curate and edit continuity across multiple titles.
Here's the problem, though. I've read the stories. You have the Golden and Silver Age, Batman and Superman. They had no continuity.
Yeah,
they had none.
No,
it was just this Superman was not the same as the Superman last month. It wasn't the same as the Superman the month after. The Batman, Superman and Lois Lane have been married like a dozen times.
Oh, certainly.
And they, and never got a divorce, but somehow or another they got married again. And those books sold 250,000 copies a month. I guess what I'm saying,
selling to a different audience.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is that I see what Doc's saying, and for Marvel, I completely agree. Marvel needs continuity. Absolutely needs continuity because the stories are set up for long-term payoff.
Yeah, certainly.
You've got these long arcs that last for, like, look at the Spider-Man clone saga, look at the Claremont X-Men, look at these are stories that are set up for a long horizon payoff. And DC has just never been that way.
Yeah, well, you're comparing an entirely
Marvel to DC.
Well, no, you're comparing an entirely different market, man. You're comparing 1940s, 50s.
No,
60s.
it's happened all the way through 90s.
No,
no, yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
No, it was. You're talking about all the different. You're talking about Silver Age Superman. And I'm going to explain that. Silver Age Superman, yeah, it was all kinds of, there was no continuity. That's fine. But the problem is you're talking about an era where it was 10-cent disposable comics, not $8 collectible comics. You're dealing, and you're also talking about, when you're selling on a newsstand to 9-year-olds versus selling in a comic shop to 38-year-olds. It's wholly different markets.
But
this is apples and oranges.
Hold on one second, guys.
Okay, never mind.
We got a $9.99 super chat from James Robbins. I appreciate you guys for always talking about this stuff in a way that is always thinking about the readers. Question: What can the next generation write? What can the next generation of writers learn from the mistakes of the comic book industry? Pele, I'm going to let you go first.
Oh gosh, what can the next generation say? They can look at what has, as far as agendas and how politics have been sort of mixed into. Comics have always been political. Don't get me wrong; they always had some degree of politics involved. But what they can look at from this era is how the overindulgence of agendas, specific political agendas by the writers has caused their books to fail. And in the future, future writers, or even if those writers decide to get wise, and the present writers decide to get wise and change what they're doing. Don't be so political. Don't be so headstrong into trying to preach your message that you allow the story to suffer. I think that's probably where this era of comics is going to be seen in the future. It's going to be, this is where it got really preachy, and this is where they tried to push their agendas down everybody's throats. And we need to make sure that we don't do that again. And also, I think that the push towards constantly refreshing every other year, at least or once a year, just refreshing the whole line, because they can't. Marvel specifically, that has just killed them, because, like I said, Marvel needs continuity. They need that story to go forward, and where Spider-Man and X-Men and all of them get really good is when your 50 60 books into a series run, and you're getting those payoffs down the line and everything, and it really just hammers it home that the story is just hooks you, and it's so good. But you never, the way Marvel's been doing it, you don't get that payoff, and the way that they're doing it now, and it just doesn't speak to the readers, and it doesn't. Marvel readers are just that way. They absolutely need that long-term payoff, and they haven't been doing it. So I think that's it. Those two specifically.
Thank you very much, Pele. Larry, you're a writer. What do you think the next generation of writers can learn from the mistakes of the current comic book industry?
I don't think it's so much a case of learning from the mistakes of the current comic book industry. I think they should learn from what the manga industry does correctly. That the stories are largely self-contained, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, but there's a beginning, middle, and end of the story. And that way you don't get burned out, the audience doesn't get burned out, and then everybody has this is the complete arc of this character. This is the complete arc of all of these characters and all of these events. But to the point about politics, it's about a cart and the horse scenario. The horse is your story. The cart's your politics. But if you put the cart before the horse, we're not going anywhere. And the people who are putting in politics, they're not always very talented writers. They don't know how to use subtlety in how they interweave politics into their craft. So it becomes obvious. It sticks out like a sore thumb. It shows off all the other lazy and bad things that they do. Put your horse first. The horse is the story. It's your characters. It's your plot. Your themes and your tone, that's the things that get you to your cart. And your cart is what you're trying to say with your story.
All right. Thanks a lot, Larry. Doc, what do you think the new next generation writers can learn from the mistakes of the current comic book industry?
Convince the reader to think. Don't tell them what to think.
I like that. Short and to the point. Lance, you're the last one. What can the next generation writers learn from the mistakes of the comic book industry?
I think it comes down to influence. And if you think you're going to write the next great Daredevil story, don't sit there and read Born Again 5 times. You write your own story and actually read probably things other than comics to influence you, like novels. The thing that made Frank Miller great was that he loved Raymond Chandler, and he took a hard-boiled detective voice and threw it into comic books. What people are doing is they're growing up reading X-Men and turning into these like dime store versions of Chris Claremont, and that's not what anybody wants. If I would say, find your own voice as a writer and come up with your own ideas, but try to stay true to what you're taking on in the meantime as well.
Well, thank you very much. I would somewhat echo that myself. If you're so enamored with the Watchmen that you're always trying to recreate the Watchmen, a writer is never going to create their own new thing that's going to be the thing that breaks the industry or brings people back. It's just going to be watered down versions and lesser versions of what was better than what you already wrote anyway. So learn from what people have done. take pieces and things from it, but you need to be original, and you need to go out and try to create your own path. Stop trying to recreate what worked in the past, like Dark Knight Return and Watchmen, and go do your own thing and try to do something amazing. That's why Marvel doesn't feel great right now, because it's always sequels. It's Civil War 2. It's trying to recreate Secret Wars. Go out and do the next great thing instead of trying to recreate what someone else already did. And I think the next generation of writers will be much happier and more successful for it. And thank you very much, James Robson, for the super chat. And it was a great question. Really appreciate it. Well, all right, Doc, this question's for you.
Go ahead.
All right. So I'll be honest. This DC moving all their classic heroes just to Black Label seems rather absurd to me. It's something I don't even think C.B. Cebulski and the Legion of Doofuses over at Marvel would do. Do you actually think this is real? Because I don't.
Actually, I really don't. I think it's, if it is, it's incredibly short-sighted, but I really don't think so. I have an expectation that this is going to be their, kind of the way that Age of Apocalypse was in 1996 or 5 or whatever it was, where, they made this huge claim about how they're killing the X-Men and they're getting rid of the X-Men continuity and blah, blah, blah. And it's all going to be, everything from here on is in the Age of Apocalypse. And it lasted 4 months. It was already pre-planned. It's all hype, and they're making it seem like it's a bigger deal than it is. I think it's probably a way to introduce. Honestly, it's probably going to end up being it wouldn't shock me if it ends up being a Legion of Superheroes related event, because actually, question. I haven't bothered to read Legion. Is it actually set in the future, or is it set in the present?
Set in the 31st century.
Okay, so it's actually set back in the 31st. Mm-hmm. So they may end up making it a Legion related event. That would probably be my guess. Mm-hmm. And then they'll, it's their way of adding some future heroes and having them bounce back and forth in time without them having to be in current continuity in case they flop. It's they have some built-in escape routes, I guess you could say. But yeah, I don't think it's legit. Putting all of your characters that people actually want to read in Black Label is just dumb.
All right, Paley. Well, you have a better sense of this. You have a direct connection actually to the industry. Yeah. Do you think this is real, or is this kind of some BS?
I think for a short term it will be, because I've already had feelers from Diamond talking to me about it.
Because my assumption is that the 5G initiative is going to be going on, and there are going to be some classic heroes on Black Label, but won't be like the home of them.
Well, it'll be the newer characters taking over the titles for a while, just kind of like, because with the whole 5G event, so you're going to have the newer characters, newer Batman, newer Superman, it's going to take over those titles for a short period of time, I wasn't told how long, for a period of time. And during that time, they were going to be doing the classic characters in Black Label. And the Black Label books were going to be stories about that interim of time, that interim of time before, between when the events that happen that sparked 5G, or they're going to be random stories during that time. It's going to be kind of continuity, kind of not. It's I don't know, but anyway, hopping around a little bit. That's kind of the impression that I got. I didn't get that exact wording, but so you're going to have several months there where the main titles are not going to have the main characters that everybody's know. So,
yeah. Do you think there'll be miniseries though that aren't Black Label? Maybe there'll be a Batman, Catwoman. Sounds like it'll have to be going on while 5G is going on.
Right. Yeah, there will be some bleed over with that. Yeah, because you have Detective is still going to be going on. It's probably still going to have Batman in it, Bruce Wayne in it. So I don't think it's going to take over all of DC. It's just going to take over the main titles for that period of time.
All right, Larry, is there anything you want to say before we head on to the next subject about DC Black Label and this pricing rumors? Do you think this is all legit?
I think it's a test balloon. I think they don't plan to commit all their eggs to this basket unless they see that this limited event run works, or if it doesn't work. But if it works well, if people buy the 5G titles well, then this might be something we see as a transition in the future. But I don't think it's going to work as they intend it.
Yeah, people buy Batman so they can read about Bruce Wayne. You know, they're not buying Batman to get woke with the new Batman. So,
and also,
right.
like, if this new Batman had Damian in it, you might have me interested. That might be an interesting story.
Yeah, but isn't it going to be Fox's son?
It could be Fox's son.
No. It's not because, and not because he's African American. It's just because he doesn't have the time in the suit. He doesn't have the time in the comics.
Yeah,
you know, he's a relative nobody. So,
yeah,
not even the original Batwing.
Yeah.
Honestly, Azrael had more history in the comics when he took over the mantle than Luke Fox does.
Exactly.
And more people at least know who the hell Azrael was. Nobody even knows who Luke Fox is. They're like, is that just, did Lucius Fox change his name? And then you find out it's his kid. You're like, wait, he has a kid? Yeah.
Also, they're doing that thing that's really annoying where every supporting character ends up with a power and every other supporting character ends up with a tie into the main character, and it makes the universe seem smaller because now every single person who works at Wayne Tech is part of the Bat family, and it's just annoying. It's like, I actually like it when you had a character like Lucius Fox who worked with Batman but didn't really know he was Batman, or he was figuring the whole thing out, or I don't know. I just kind of like the more human characters. I don't think everybody needs powers in these people's universes. I don't think Pepper Potts needs to be an Iron Man, that type of thing.
Yeah, basically ruined the Flash in CW when every one of his supporting team became superheroes themselves.
Right.
Like, why am I even watching this? Flash isn't very special anymore.
Now, if they had, like he said earlier, if they had Damian in the Batman costume, that would probably excite readers quite a bit. I mean, I don't know if it would replace Bruce really, but man, I could see that, at least for a time, I could see that being a real hit because people want to see more of Damian.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, I think that basically will wrap up our DC Black Label pricing rumors talk. Now it's time to move on to some Marvel talk. This news came out a while back, but I figured we should talk about Iron Man 2020. Tony Stark Iron Man basically failed to launch under Dan Slott. CB Cebulski and the Legion of Doofuses are doubling down, rebooting the series with the same creative team and turning it into an event with 6 tie-in miniseries. Doc, are Marvel leadership learning all the wrong lessons from Jonathan Hickman's X-Men?
I think so. You know, they tend to learn a lot of the wrong lessons from every success. They've yet to figure out where the point of success is. They get confused when success happens, and then when they try to diagnose where the success comes from, they always pick the wrong thing. And they think it's, here's a mini series that leads into 7 ostensibly ongoings. No, that's not what made it successful. What made it successful was a good creative teams with an interesting idea. And yeah, they're just learning all the wrong lessons from Hickman, or from Hickman's success. I'm not going to get into all the titles, but okay, cool. You're doing an Iron Man 2020 because, you know, Iron Man 2020 has been around in the comics for decades now. But it doesn't need to be an event. I mean, let's be honest. Nobody really gave a damn about Iron Man 2020 at any point in time. I know that I think it was under might have been under Fraction or I think it was Fraction, where they tried to make Iron Man 2020 into a thing with Arno Stark, and and then Bendis pushed it with Tony not being Howard's kid and a bunch of crap. Basically Iron Man has been a mess in the comics for a good number of years now, and nobody knows how to fix it, but they're just looking at, well, I guess Iron Man 2020 is our reboot. It doesn't seem.
I got a lot of flack from my viewers when I was talking about this. They're like, Dan Slott's been working towards Iron Man 2020 since he rebooted Tony Stark Iron Man. It was like, yeah, but that was going to be a story arc. That wasn't supposed to be an event. It wasn't supposed to launch 6 tie-ins. Don't give me that crap. They saw what Jonathan Hickman had planned out, and they were like, let's do that with Tony Stark Iron Man 2020 too. It's like,
yeah,
Jeez, come on, man.
Yeah, it's the same thing. They think that it's their publishing format and not the quality of the story.
Yeah,
I mean, who is sitting around wanting a relaunch of Force Works? Isn't that like one of the most reviled Iron Man runs ever?
Well, it was technically the Avengers West Coast relaunch during the extreme era of the 90s, but same difference.
What, you're saying Operation Galactic Storm wasn't a great storyline?
I like 18-part crossovers. What are you talking about?
Yeah, honestly, Iron Man 2020 seems like something that in the 90s they would have done across a handful of annuals. And now they're making a major event out of it. And the thing is, does anybody actually give a damn about Iron Man 2020 as a character?
They would if Scott Snyder was writing it. Or if this was Donny Cates' first story on Iron Man to launch it, people would be like, hell yes, I'm all in on this. But it's Dan Slott on a failed title, failing harder. No one's excited for that.
I'd go a step further and say, why not bring back Bob Layton to write this thing? He's not doing anything.
I think he's the guy that created Iron Man 2020 in the first place.
Yep, and he knows those characters. He's part of the 2 best runs of Iron Man and created X-O Manowar. So
my question is, are we going to go back to the Doom and Iron Man time travel into 2020 that happened? Where they found King Arthur as a little kid in Los Angeles. I think he was in LA.
I would think they have to, right?
I mean, if we're going to go with a full goofy idea, commit to the bit.
Just go all the way, baby.
Or even, maybe it just putting Dan Slott on this title has really torpedoed what should have been a momentous occasion for Iron Man. I mean, this was an event that people who are fans were like, oh my God, we're actually getting close to this year. We could do something fun with this. And instead they've like absolutely taken the wind out of everybody's sails with the 6 tie-ins and the all the terrible guy like Dan Slott who just
he tried to make it a family book, and it was like, Iron Man's not a family book.
When was the last time Dan Slott wrote something that people actually liked?
Most people liked the last issue of his Spider-Man run.
Because it was over and we weren't being punished anymore.
The last time let's be honest, the last time Slott wrote anything that people actually enjoyed was, I think, when he was on, not his, I think it was when he was on She-Hulk. Like the mid 2000s She-Hulk.
That was what he made his name with, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he managed to keep a She-Hulk book going for a while, and it was relatively charming, apparently. I never bothered to read it.
This seems to be a recurring theme of bad writers starting really hot and then just going into the dumpster as garbage.
Well, the only thing that She-Hulk was Sex in the City in a comic book.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it did well because that's what Jennifer Walters is. She's, a lawyer in a big major city, and it was Sex in the City.
I would say it was Ally McBeal, but
yeah, okay, yeah.
6 of one, half a dozen another.
Yeah. I don't know why I even know that show exists, but okay.
The Dancing Baby, everyone like fell for that. I remember when that was getting emailed to everyone's offices, right? And everyone would get around the computer and laugh about it.
Actually, that's a good point.
But yeah, it was that was kind of like lightning in a bottle at the time, because I remember everybody was going, "Oh gosh, this is like," and people who didn't read comics were wanting to read She-Hulk because they found out that it was like, it was like the sitcom that they liked.
Yeah,
but he was ripping that off wholesale. All the same, even had the same beats as the show. So he would basically watch a few episodes of Sex and the City or Ally McBeal, and then he would write an issue of She-Hulk, copying what had happened on the TV show. And
so what you're saying is he's always been a talentless hack?
Yes,
and that's what he did. He basically, and if you actually look at the issues of She-Hulk that were his best known, they were copies of situations that happened in Sex and the City or Ally McBeal. So he was just copying them. So, if he has something to copy, I guess he does a pretty good job with it. But if he doesn't, he fails miserably.
He can't handle more than one title at a time, because he's doing Fantastic Four and Iron Man right now, and he's just flailing.
No, that's too much. He can't focus on more than one thing.
He's never been able to carry. He's never been. Look, he's too busy, arguing with people on the internet and cleaning Cheetos dust off his fingers to actually write 2 comics a month.
The only comic I ever bought from him is, and it's actually the only in continuity Spider-Man. This was like the one time I was going to read Spider-Man, was Superior Spider-Man, and it was absolutely abysmal. I had 4 issues of it. I hated every second of it, and I was just like, that was my only experience with Dan Slott. I mean, I absolutely hate his writing. He crowds every page with bubbles. He doesn't let the artist actually show anything off. His writing is just like, it's ubiquitous, but it's not like, there's no tension building ever. It's just kind of like a bunch of crap on the page.
It's puerile. It's absolutely puerile. And that if I had to give a defining term for Dan Slott, it's puerile. So.
And it's insane because, by all means, Tony Stark is not in the MCU anymore. There are a million Tony Stark fans out there. They're going to want more Tony Stark stories, and they're not putting their premier talent in focusing on this character that people are going to be coming to them for, and they're just phoning it in with basically a spent writer that has nothing left in the chamber.
I mean, yeah, basically. Look,
when's the last time someone tried to make Tony Stark cool? Like 10 years ago?
You can't have a Playboy. You can't have a Playboy.
Yeah, you can't do the Playboy style character anymore. Otherwise, he'll get turned. Yeah. He'll get labeled a misogynist or womanizer,
because he's supposed to be like James Bond with like technology, kind of, right?
He's Howard Hughes.
He's Howard Hughes.
Or Howard Hughes. Okay.
Yeah,
eccentric billionaire with a power armor.
Yeah,
Marvel's Batman, but
but also not Contingency Man, and he also has a lot of personal demons.
Yes, he's got a lot of foils. Like he's got a lot of edges that need to be shined up a little bit. Stuff to work on.
But let's be honest. Iron Man has always had an incredibly weak rogues gallery, and his biggest rogue is one that they can't really use anymore with the Mandarin.
Winnie the Pooh is a perfectly fine character. I don't understand what you're talking
about. I mean, I guess my point is that, who are you going to really put? I mean, I know that they kind of tried to make Doom and like Tony's opposite for a while, but nobody's able to ever really do it.
Well, you got the unicorn sitting over there. I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, who does he have though? Living Laser, Ghost.
He has villains that almost make some of Captain America's villains blush.
AIM.
Yeah,
You know?
okay, he has AIM, but they've basically turned AIM into semi-good guys in the past few
Kinda.
years.
You got the Stains, you got the Ironmongers 1 and 2, I guess.
But all it
What
is
about Stax thought that his villain could be the X-Men?
That would be. I think it will be. I think that's actually what will happen. But
if
And
they're
shout out to
smart,
Comics Aficionados, got a great YouTube channel if you haven't subbed.
yeah, that would actually be a smart choice.
because he
Why
would be
would
the one
this villain be
championing
the
the
X-Men,
humans
though?
against the mutant insurgents. So,
Because they're rising in power. They're taking over.
oh yeah, exactly.
That's
And-
okay.
and-
I'm just
and-
curious.
And he's a technologist, futurist. He's always about, basically advancing humankind through technology. And what is the big kind of problem going on in at the end of House of X, Powers of X? The humans,
Singularity.
yeah, the humans kept advancing themselves with technology and then overtook the mutants.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I could see that. But yeah, Stax is right. His best rogue has always been his own ego and his own problems. But for superhero comics, doesn't really last very long. I mean, when your problem is mostly yourself, that can only take you so long. You need to have antagonists. And Iron Man's always had other guy in suit. The Mandarin.
Communists. Don't forget the communists.
Yeah, the commies.
Of course,
Which
they're
is-
not bad guys anymore now.
Yeah.
Every time I open an Iron Man comic since Matt Fraction wrote it, it's just I feel like he's Mr. Getting Lectured Man. Like there's always a character who's telling him why he's wrong, why he can't do something, and the moral implications of it. And it's boring. It's just like I don't care. I signed up to read a comic about a dude with a sweet suit that kicked butt. Like why? I mean, you can make some moral implications and stuff, but it just seemed like every surrounding character from him was so annoying. It was just like, get rid of these people. I'm just tired of them.
Yeah, we should do a stream one day and just talk about all the characters Matt Fraction has ruined forever. That'd be like,
Also, remember Superior Iron Man?
Can we start with his wife?
I do want to point out, like Black Cat was talking about Rick Remender tried, and so did Warren Ellis. So everyone talks about Extremis being one of the best Iron Man stories ever. I went and tried to read it. It sucks.
Yeah, it's a
not even
bad
fun.
story.
It has really
Funny.
great art. That's it.
Yes, it does have great art, but I'm sitting there reading it. I got through like an issue and a half. I was like, I'm not finishing this.
I finished it and I was none the wiser. It's better to just flip through it and look at the pretty pictures than it is to read.
Well, the thing is, Extremis was designed to evolve Iron Man from being Iron Man into being the engineer from the Authority. That was really what Extremis was doing. It was evolving Iron Man from being guy in suit to being essentially Marvel's Green Lantern, where his power comes from the Extremis and he can basically make whatever he wants with his mind, including his suit. His suit actually, comes out. So yeah, it was designed to evolve Tony from being Iron Man into being the engineer from the Authority.
Where'd all the dumb stuff come with breathing fire?
That was just
Yeah.
stuff
That's
from
part
the
of the
movie,
extender.
really.
Yeah, that was just movie stuff.
That was in the movie, but then in the comic, because I know it's been almost 8, maybe 10 years since I read the comic, there was something weird going on with it, with like somebody. There was something with somebody, like some other creature monster he had to fight in that, and I remember not liking the villain in Extremis.
Yeah, I remember there was somebody that, but I thought that was another one of his villains that actually got Extremis enhanced. But I honestly don't remember.
Yeah, it's been too long. I guess I probably shouldn't throw too much out there if I can't quite remember. I just remember it being a really crappy story with great art.
Honestly, I've not really kept up on Iron Man since, oh my God, since it was 75 cents.
Yeah.
Well, it's too bad because he should be, one of the top sellers. But it sounds like it appears he'll never be the tentpole that Marvel really should have with that character after what the MCU has done for him. But
yeah, it was funny there. Well, just real quick, Iron Man, considering what he was the anchor of the MCU, the savior of Phase 3, the great hero, that saved the world several times, and it only upgraded in the comics. It only upgraded him from being a C-lister to a B-.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So Aldrich Killian's the villain, and he's the guy who has the mutation, and that was the part that threw me because I thought Extremis was supposed to be kind of more of a technological.
Killian, that's his name.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And he turns into this crazy alien xenomorph thing, and then it's just Tony fighting a gross looking alien thing.
Yeah.
So
I remember that now.
Not good.
All right, Lance. Now that you're talking, let's get to this one. Marvel are launching ForceWorks, Machine Man, Rescue, Weapon.X, and Ironheart during the Iron Man 2020 event. Are any of these titles get you hot and bothered?
No, and it actually does the opposite, where I may have taken a shot on Iron Man 2020, but knowing that there is going to be so many tie-ins and crossovers, it makes me not want to touch any of it. I would at least be on board for the 5-issue or 6-issue arc for Iron Man 2020, but now it's just these other titles. I mean, who can read a Rescue comic or Ironheart comic or you're right. I mean,
well, the Ironheart comic, Eve, whatever her name is, has actually done an okay job with a lot of the stories. She's actually, unlike most writers at Marvel, takes criticism and addresses criticism in her writing. And that tends to be a trait of people who are going to be great writers for Marvel down the road. Mm-hmm. So, I'd be willing to read an Ironheart story normally, but not tied into this garbage.
I just don't have it in me. I mean, at the most, it should be a two series kind of comic where you could have Iron Man, maybe War Machine, and then an event, like a 5-issue tie-in for both.
I would have story arc.
Yeah, I mean, to make it to spin this off into every horrible idea that Iron Man's ever had and make 5 ongoing titles is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. It's just none of them are going to make it past issue 10. I can't imagine.
Well, no, they're not designed to. They're all miniseries or one shots for the event.
All planned to be.
I assume that they're going to reboot Iron Man again once Iron Man 2020 is over, with Dan Slott as the writer again. But that hasn't been confirmed. Larry, do any of those titles get you excited? Do you have any fond memories of any of those old titles or story arcs?
I have fond memories of picking up bargain bin copies of Machine Man from the 70s and 80s. But every time they tried to do anything different with Machine Man has been terrible. ForceWorks, I was buying really heavily back when ForceWorks was first a thing, and then I was going, oh dear Lord, this is horrible trash. And there was the cartoon ForceWorks that was connected to the bad Iron Man cartoon. So I have the opposite of positive feelings about that. I thought they've been doing some interesting things with Ironheart, and they've actually been willing to address some of the criticisms of current Marvel, but if they're tying it into this, they're probably going to abandon all of that to focus on the corporate mandated crossover event. So that's a clear miss.
Mm-hmm.
And why is Pepper Potts in an Iron Man armor? That's a terrible idea. Whoever thought that was a good idea?
I think Fraction damaged her heart, had a part where she damaged her heart and he had to put the thing in her, but he didn't want her to become an Iron Man, but then he got hurt, or he got Norman Osborn beat his ass, so then she started rescuing people, but she didn't actually have weapons on it.
That was stupid.
He made it very defensive. The story basically, she had better defenses on her armor than he did, but she couldn't really do anything.
Well, that's a good thing for an action-oriented art medium.
Yeah.
It should be called the best defense. and you're just dodging villains all the whole comic. I didn't even get touched.
Oh, she could take a pounding. I mean, she could literally take a pounding. So that's what was important. Yeah. I'm glad everybody got that one.
So my perch, he's on a plane right now, but he makes a good point. And I wanted to actually bring this up while Lance was talking about it. Ironheart sales actually went up under e-viewing. Of course, they double and triple shipped the first few issues, but once they just started shipping them regularly, they actually were gradually going up before they canceled the title.
I really liked that crossover with Black Panther's sister, Shuri. That was actually good. I liked how they did Shuri in that one. How they both hated each other, but then became friends through the comic as opposed to just liking each other automatically. And Riri was exposed to someone who was just as arrogant and cocky and a pain in the behind as herself, and she hated that person. I thought it wasn't great writing, but it was better than what we've been getting at Marvel.
Okay.
So Michael Davila is asking, and I got my answer. Who would be a good writer to get on Iron Man? They should have got Scott Snyder. He would have been the perfect Iron Man writer, in my opinion. Doc, who do you think would be good on Iron Man?
Doc.
Uh-oh. I think Doc's gone. Larry, who would be good on Iron Man?
Oh, God. You know what I would honestly like? Put Jonathan Hickman on it, because he has this talent. I'm not a super huge fan of just picking all sorts of little interesting details from the giant tapestry of a character's history and composing a story out of that. I thought that would be an interesting approach to do something like that with Iron Man.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Jonathan Hickman is. It would be good if he went on that after X-Men, but that'll be a while. Pele, who do you want to see on Iron Man?
That's a good question. I guess. I want to say Al Ewing.
Even after Immortal Hulk 25?
Yeah, even after that, because I think that it's time. I think Ewing would be about the only writer that could get away with writing Iron Man as a misogynist again, because he kind of got away with a lot of things in Immortal Hulk that I think some writers for Marvel wouldn't have been able to. So the reason, I mean, it's kind of like, he made the Hulk a murderous, monstrous killing machine, and everybody thought, oh, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he could turn a corner, possibly if he had a mind to, he could turn a corner with Iron Man and get away with it.
All right, Lance, who do you want on Iron Man?
The easiest solution here is to take the great Exo Manowar writers. So you either go for Venditti, Matt Kindt, or go old school like Bob Layton or Michelini. That would be my answer. They've already proven they could do it, and there's more. Starting from the birth of Exo Manowar, there's almost twice as many good Exo Manowar comics than there are Iron Man comics.
Yeah.
Iron Man is just like, I understand it sells more and it has $1 billion movies, but these comics are just not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have
Exo Manowar's had like 70 good issues since they rebooted it.
Yep. And they had about 35 of the original run too.
Mm-hmm. All right, Black Cat saying Chris Priest. What do you think about that one, Larry?
I'm a huge fan of what he's doing on Vampirella. He actually made me care about Vampirella, so I think he could do something great.
Mm-hmm. All right, Paley, do you think Christopher Priest would be a good way to go?
I think that he'd be better than most. He's a very consistent writer, and he's very thoughtful with regards to how he constructs a story. And I think he'd do a really good job if editorial would actually let him go the direction he wants to go.
Mm-hmm. All right,
but also,
Lance,
isn't Marvel stingy? Would they be willing to pay Chris Priest what he's worth?
Wow.
Probably not right now. No, they don't have the money.
Lance, what do you think about Rick Remender? Would that be a good choice?
No. Rick Remender is good with really juvenile characters. He's not good with actually intelligent characters. If you give him Give him something silly that is of little consequence, or maybe something that's very cartoony and kind of jokey, like maybe Spider-Man. And I'm not saying Spider-Man is necessarily juvenile, but something a little bit more just kind of like cartoony. Well, yeah. But don't give him a character that's mature and don't give him the X-Men. Don't give him Iron Man. There's a terrible fit.
So you're saying we should put him on Squirrel Girl then?
Absolutely.
If you must pay him.
Squirrel Girl, grand design by Rick Remender.
You know who would be good?
What's up, Doc?
Brian Hill. If you read his Cyberforce and his Aphrodite 5, both of them were very in that technological vein. He wrote Cyberforce and Aphrodite 5, especially the Aphrodite 5 would have fit perfectly. He was writing this great character that was kind of like a Tony Stark, except for he was looking at building, AIs and cybernetic augmentations for the body. I think he would have been, you could take some of what he did there and really apply it. He could really go a lot further on an Iron Man book.
All right, Paley, I got another question for you. So since this Iron Man 2020 event has been released, what's the buzz? Has anyone come to you and said, I need this book?
No, but they're wondering what the hell's going on with all the gears on the shoulders and everything.
I get that question a lot, too.
And, I just don't know and that Spider-Man gear costume was the most god-awful eyesore I have ever seen in comics in the last 25 years. That was just where he had like the man butt, he had like the ponytail and, the gears and the arms, spider legs coming out. That is the most god-awful looking, hideous thing I've seen in years. That was, you guys see it?
Yeah.
Oh my God! I have it burned into my irises now. It's just so.
So that's from the from Abrams and Abrams for Spider-Man.
No, that's a variant cover for the Iron Man 2020 thing. And it's like, oh my God, that's terrible.
I just want to know how he puts his arms down with gears in his armpits.
And he doesn't. He just runs around like that with his arms straight out, going, "Oh, I'm Spider-Man."
Well, the Iron Man too. Like,
I'm Iron Spider-Man.
Look!
Looks like he's constantly carrying watermelons.
But it's just a variant cover. It's not a working costume that they go with.
Yeah, but the Iron Man 2020 is.
But anyway, as far as what people were asking, no, nobody's asked about that because nobody really cares.
And shouldn't there be somebody whose job it is to look at art that doesn't make any physical sense and curate the quality of the art? Maybe we should call that person editor.
You know what?
They did exactly what they want it to do. It got people talking about it because they're like, "Oh my God, that's so awful."
In fairness, this is something I will always reiterate. Because it looks really freaking cool is always a suitable explanation for any unrealistic superhero costume.
Right, but this wasn't the thing that looked cool. It looked stupid.
It still kind of looks a little cool.
The gear costume,
the Iron Man one,
is from the 80s, isn't it?
Yeah.
And not everything's a great idea from the 80s, but I think if you do the storyline and it's part of the storyline, you do bring back the gear costume. I don't know what you do with it, but you can bring it back in some fashion, I would think.
Yeah, I don't get the interest in Iron Man 2020. It doesn't really. I haven't seen, from a customer perspective, it's a novelty that doesn't deserve a full mini. Go ahead.
Hey, in 79 years, we'll be doing a big 2099 event.
Oh yeah, yay! Because they're doing a 2099 event now. They do one every like 5 or 10 years. They did it 10 years ago, and then now they're doing another one this winter.
And they're going to do another one in 5 years when they do a Spider-Man 2099 Sony animated movie, because that's probably going to happen.
Yeah. I think that's.
I hated that universe so much. I hated
it was very hit
universe.
it was very hit or miss. They had a lot of really good ideas in 2099, but most of it was trash.
Well, it took until Ellis came on and did Doom 2099 and then had Doom actually take over the world for it to actually get interesting. And by then, most of the interest in the line had waned to the point where only really hard, it was hard to get people to come back to it.
Basically, Miguel O'Hara was the only good character they produced in Doom 2099. Everything else was forgettable.
Michael Davila had a question about, do we think that the current climate of the Me Too movement and other social issues have really watered down and made Tony Stark less interesting?
I don't think it's the Me Too movement. I think Tony Stark is a major franchise thing, and like all major franchise things, you got to water it down. It can't be too controversial. It needs to hit all four of the quadrants at maximum efficiency, which makes it bland.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of nailed it.
Yeah. This would be my thoughts. Yes, anytime anything gets too popular, you got to dumb it down for the lowest common denominator so everyone can enjoy it, right?
Well, that's what they did with Wolverine by turning him into Dad Vereen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he lost his edge.
Yeah, that's what they did with Deadpool by making him Joke Man.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. That is a perfect segue, Doc, because I want to talk about some X-Force #1. What were your thoughts?
I enjoyed it, but like, hey guys, just fair warning, we're going to spoil the crap out of everything that we talk about here. So if you spoiler warning, go get a coffee or something. All the stakes are gone. First of all, nobody really felt like themselves except for Wolverine. And
what, you mean weird clones made by a weird mutant process with Xavier re-downloading their minds into them means that they don't act like themselves? I'm shocked to hear that.
Yeah, shocking. Like there were certain lines in it. Let me I think there was one with Jean Grey saying, talking about a response to the attack on the island, talking about quick and violent. And I'm like, when in the blue hell will Jean Grey ever say quick and violent about anything?
Yeah, I think that's the point. I think everyone's changing. You're seeing people are physically manifesting and becoming part of the island. You're seeing other characters are dropping their names and taking on new names now that they're on Krakoa, and you're seeing people's personalities and things. We know that Jean Grey died. She was resurrected. She had her new mind put into her by Professor X, and I think that's part of the overall plot. Even though somehow Wolverine seems to be immune from it because he seems to have gone back to his old self.
Wolverine, that's the thing. Wolverine even has always been, like they had a lot of trouble, like back in the Weapon X program, getting his mind to accept all the false memory implants and everything. They had to put physical, barriers and stuff in his brain, because otherwise he'd heal. His brain is really not able to get affected by a lot of, psychological or psychic effects. He's not immune to it, but he's very, very naturally resistant without any training. And so, that's why it's always been a shock anytime he actually has gotten mind controlled, because it's incredibly difficult to get him. They have to literally kill him and then hold him in kind of stasis while they do all the work before he comes back to life in order to effectively, put in any sort of mind control. They had to do it whenever he got killed by the Gorgon and turned into the Hands assassin. They had to do it whenever Apocalypse killed him, and they had to and he got turned into Death. Yeah.
And it always takes like 10 times more effort for it to hold on him than it does for anybody else.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
It's not even worth it.
So Wolverine acting like Wolverine, but everyone else acting wildly out of character is interesting. But the thing that I don't get yet is why Wolverine hasn't said anything about it.
Well, you tie that into the whole little thing where Gene, and Scott have like a special rooming relationship. I think the implication isn't that they're in a special throuple. It's that they're the three who realize things are wrong and they're trying to fix it from the inside. That's the implication I got.
Either that or he's getting laid now finally and he's alive and he just doesn't care. He's like, I'm alive again. I'm getting laid. I don't care. I'm getting beer from the mainland. Everything is good.
Yeah.
Where's my wings?
Marauder's Wolverine definitely did not feel like Wolverine. He felt like Dadverine.
Yeah.
X-Force Wolverine kind of felt like Wolverine.
Here's a weird thing. What if there are multiple versions of the character? Because, I mean, Xavier could just mass produce them now.
And there may be, and that would explain why there's so many different feels. Because
hey guys, it's not that our editors aren't doing their job. It's that this is the story we planned for everybody to be written in consistently.
Yeah, now the one thing that I did hate, and it fell flat for me, was the Xavier thing at the end. It just fell ultimately, and this is the thing that I warned about with having infinity ability to clone yourself, and basically death is no longer an obstacle for them. That if somebody dies, who the hell cares? There's no stakes to it.
Well, I think that might be the point of the story, because this will be the fourth time that we know of that Charles is going to have his mind reloaded when Jean does it via Cerebro.
Fourth time he's had it done that way. 7th time total that he's been reborn. Because he's in his third body when they started.
Yeah, so like at what point does the copy like lose the essence of the person or even their soul, and it becomes something else? I think that might be kind of where the stories are going towards. And that's why we're seeing these kind of weird changes. And like you mentioned, Wolverine seems to be more impervious to it.
Yeah. Now, the thing that I don't get though is why he's not doing anything about it. He should be the guy that's kind of poking around, trying to figure out why everything's weird.
Unless he has a special thing from Moria, where they're running a special option where they reset everything at the end of a year or two in a big event comic, and then we have a soft reboot of the X-Men back into a more normal continuity comic at the end of Hickman's big run.
And that's possible, but I think Hickman's sticking around for about 3 years. So,
well, I said 2 years is a rough guesstimate.
Okay.
Supposedly, according to the interviews I read, that they already had the first 2 years story mapped out.
Here's something that I thought was interesting. It was a tweet a while back that Hickman deleted, and people had seen it and they didn't think much about it, and he deleted it a while later. But he said, "Hey guys, I'm at Drive Savers. I'm actually doing research for a comic book, lol," and he deleted it. Why would he be at Drive Savers to do research for a comic book unless he was researching how clone copies of data tend to lose their effectiveness?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
So yeah, and he's like, "Oh, I shouldn't say that. I'm giving something away." Then he deletes it. But he actually said that.
Tease that, delete it, and then later when the comic comes out, people discuss the deleted tweet. So I don't
think he thinks that. I don't think he's that. No.
I think somebody at Marvel Corporate thinks that way.
What I find really interesting about Hickman,
it was a pretty innocuous thing.
He said I read in an interview where he said he reads 2 books at once. He reads a grown-up book and then like a book for enjoyment, fiction. And so that's how he comes up with some of these wacky ideas. He used to read like something like a serious nonfiction science book that a scientist would read, and then like a fiction book. Like, and I'm like, that's kind of, he is a pretty interesting guy. You gotta give it to him. This is the most potent X-Men's felt in a while.
And of all the woke Twitterati, as far as the woke creators and stuff like that, I've always gotten the impression that he just kind of hangs around just because, and he doesn't really double down on a lot of stupid crap. He just kind of like just go, oh yeah, yay, whatever,
I also think Orange Man is bad.
What?
I also think Orange Man is bad.
Yeah, and then he goes off on whatever he's doing. It doesn't really, doesn't really seem to be his thing.
The one thing that is still bugging me about this issue, though, is now maybe I'm just having a total brain fart. Who in the blue hell is Healer?
Got me, man. You're my X-Men guy.
I know. No, that's the thing that's really been bugging me.
It's probably some random mutant who is in the background of some comic from the 80s.
It's a damn good chance to bend this character. Let me look.
I felt this issue just to like try to do too much with too little real estate. It was like 18 set pieces, 50 characters. It was just crazy. I'm like, it was just like focus on the team and a mission. I don't know what they're. It's like, oh, the Marauders come in for 4 pages. Oh, this happens. I don't need the Marauders to pop in for 2 seconds. I would like more focus on the story.
My problem with all X-Force comics that have happened in the post-Cable era of X-Force is I don't really know what X-Force is about without it being related to Cable and his story and a bunch of Hellions and offcast people from the Xavier School forming a team to try to find their own way. The X-Force as the super secret police for Xavier's mutants has never worked for me.
One guy says Healer's one of the Morlocks.
Yeah.
Dominic Howell.
Yeah. Dominic nailed it, and I don't remember him at all.
He actually was one of the people that escaped the massacre of their community of assassins known as Marauders, and then he joined Moira McTaggart's Muir Island, became a Husk.
Oh, okay. All right, because that was really bugging me, and I thought maybe it was some thing. Thought it might have been
a plant.
A plant, yes.
It could be a plant, though, with the way this run of X-Men is going.
Yeah.
It could be.
So, Doc, what did you think about the bad guys in this cutting up Domino and using her skin to infiltrate the island?
I thought it was hella interesting. I mean, you're goddamn creative. Let me tell you that.
What was that? I'm sorry, I missed it.
That was skinning Domino and then using her to basically wrap themselves with, and using her, and putting it on their parachutes so that it would trick the island into letting them through. It's creepy, it's disturbing, and it's really, really creative. And I like it. And you know what? In that case, that is the one thing that I did really like when it came to stakes, because you have while the X-Men really can't die because they can just get hatched again.
It's body horror is the stake.
Well, yes and no. It's while the body horror that's interesting and all, but when you have villains that are that vicious.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's where the stakes actually, kind of go, where they're that vicious and just they have no lines that they won't cross, at least so far.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was really cool. I know you didn't like the art as much as me. What was there something about Joshua Cassara's art that just didn't do it for you? Because I thought it was great. Because when I was looking at the comic, I viewed that as how Ben Percy and Joshua Cassara think Wolverine sees Krakoa. It's not safe. It's not utopia. It's dark. It's dirty, and it's very dangerous.
I just thought it was a little too sketchy for my taste. It was a little too sketchy, and the coloring was a little too muddy. But I've had that problem with a lot of modern comics, where the coloring is just way too muddy and dark, and you're killing whatever pencils are there. It's hiding too much of the pencil work.
It's very muted.
Yeah, and I while I like to a degree muted coloring, it's not that it's too much. Personal taste.
Brown and
Did
gold.
you like that there was finally an X-Men title that had its own look and feel?
Yeah, instead of just being another Stuart Immonen clone. Yeah.
So, guys, I need to bounce. Thank you for having me on today.
All right, brother.
We definitely need to do this again soon.
Absolutely.
Almost like we're going to be doing something later.
Yes, all right, man.
So, yeah.
All right, thanks, Larry.
What do you think about brown and gold Wolverine being back?
Oh, I love brown and tan Wolverine. Brown and tan Wolverine costume is still my favorite. I really like that they went back to it. I don't like that it's still a little bit. It's kind of just the brown and tan coloring on the more recent design of his yellow and blue.
Yeah.
Where it has like the legs that are split. I kind of like that old V shape.
Yeah.
The V-shaped costume. They need to go back to that a little bit. No,
but at least they got the coloring finally right. I was very happy about that.
Yeah.
Because why would he have yellow and blue? It doesn't mix in with the environment. It doesn't look right. It just
Yeah, I've never been a huge. I mean, I liked the novelty of going back to the blue and yellow back in the early 90s when they did it after him being in the brown and tan for 15 years.
Yeah.
But it should have been short term, and if they were going to do anything, just bounce back and forth a little bit.
Right.
But again, preference.
So, Pele, what was the response from your readers? Did you have anybody drop the series after issue 1 from their polls, or were people generally happy?
For which series? Because X-Force. Oh, X-Force was a titan. Number 1 is the best-selling comic that we've had of the year. It's just a monster. Everybody was looking forward to X-Force. I've not really. I mean, there'll be people that drop it, but there's always a drop off between 1 and 2. But it's still going to be one of the top-selling titles. It's very, very solid. I've been over ordering on a lot of the titles, all the mutant titles actually, just so I can have back issues later on, because I think this is going to be so important. But yeah, it's been very, very well received. Some weren't. Excalibur kind of missed a bit. Marauders didn't sell as well as I thought it would. New Mutants sold really, really well. But kind of, I don't know, the reception from New Mutants actually got a little bit, was not what I was expecting. I thought it would be better received. But
yeah, let's talk about some New Mutants, because of all 5 of the new ones, that's the one I disliked the most, or didn't enjoy the most. I thought there was a lot of there was some Bendis speak in there, and I was surprised to see that, because I'd never actually seen that in a Jonathan Hickman comic book.
Right. I think that's where he borrowed a lot from Bendis, from some of Bendis's ideas on the New Mutants. It's just, well, I like that they brought back Wolfie Girl. I can't ever remember her name.
Wolfsbane?
Wolfsbane. I knew she'd be back because they're reincarnating everybody. But I thought that was. I figured that they would touch on that more because she had been dead for so little time. Really, comparatively, and like what was her experience with death? What was it'd have been a great opportunity, but just didn't do it. It was just more like oh hey, how are you doing? Oh, I'm alive again. That was about it. So
I think part of the problem with New Mutants is that much of issue 1 was mostly an info dump.
A lot of exposition.
Yeah, it was a lot of info dump. Like Hickman really needed a lot of. There were certain things that I didn't like. For instance, like Mondo and Doug talking like they knew each other. They literally have zero history together. They've never been shown. I don't even think they've ever even been shown in the same comic as each other.
And I thought that
acting like
Doug
they.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And acting like they knew each other pretty well was a little weird. I mean, I like what they're trying to do with it, and it makes sense to have Mondo and Doug kind of as a working partnership with trying to communicate with Krakoa. That makes perfect sense, but they made it seem like they had a lot more history because they have none.
Yeah, I thought
that was my favorite part of the comic, though.
Yeah, it is. I mean, but I would have liked to see more of them getting to know each other because they don't know each other and they're acting like they do.
Mm-hmm.
And
I thought that Doug could already communicate with Krakoa. That's what I was kind of confused. I was like, why does he need Mondo?
Well, he can kind of communicate with him. He can communicate better than Xavier could, but it's not direct. And
he said it was like basic phrases that didn't quite work together when he first met Krakoa. I assume by now it's better, but I guess he was looking for like a more of a dialogue. Yeah.
A translator, because he I think they expected to get him to get Mondo and Krakoa into an almost symbiotic relationship so that Mondo could understand Krakoa and then convert it into something that Doug could understand.
Right.
Did you like the Quado moment? Wait.
Yeah. I mean, I liked it for the most part. It was mostly an info dump, complete setup. I really wish a lot of this setup stuff would have been handled in, House of X, Powers of X. It would have, if they would have made it 16 issues instead of 12, just to do a lot of this initial setup. I would have liked it more so that there was already something to spin out, because otherwise, so far, most of the first issues have been setup, just setup, setup. There's no, you're not into the premise of the title yet. And hell, you're going to be 2 or 3 issues into X-Force before you get to it. At least they did all of the setup for Marauders and New Mutants in the first issue.
Yeah,
but
I'm afraid that a lot of our job at the shop is going to be trying to keep people to stick with those books.
Yeah,
because they're going to be like, oh, well, nothing happened in issue 1. I don't think I'm going to care. No, you need to keep it. You need to keep going with it. The payoff's going to be in a couple issues. You're going to start getting the action and more ingrained story going forward. You need to stick with it. So there's going to be a lot of hand holding going on here that wouldn't have been necessary if they just hit the ground running.
Yeah.
So
Doc, what did you think about the art? Because it was kind of had a Bill Sienkiewicz vibe to it, but not quite as trippy. They even tried to kind of do it with the colors. Did you think that worked?
Yeah, you know what? I actually didn't. I didn't love the art, but I didn't hate the art. I mean, I was kind of ambivalent on it. It's a little too coloring book for me. It's a little too pale pastels. I wish there would be a little bit more boldness to it. If it doesn't matter if it's in the pencils or because like the Bill Sienkiewicz thing was, he didn't have a lot of really bold colors, but he had really, really bold lines, a lot of ink, a lot of, really scratchy lines and everything. It made it very unique. This looked like paint by numbers. And I can't really say I liked it or I hated it. And that's the problem. I would like it to evoke something in me.
Was it watercolors they were using in there, or what was that?
I think it was digital watercoloring.
Okay.
But
it looked different. I'll give it that. For me, it came down to the cast and just not being interested in anybody in the cast. But it was different. The art, I thought, looked like something that could be palatable.
Mm-hmm. So, one of the interesting things, we've seen them all the way through Hawks and Pox, and then, in the Dawn of X titles are the white pages. And the one thing I did like about New Mutants is their white pages were very unique. You had like one wanted poster with some information on the Starjammers, which I thought was really cool. Like, I wouldn't mind that. I would put that on my wall. And then there's like another great advertisement for a space lawyer. What did you think about that?
That's cool.
Oh, I actually liked the way that they did the info pages in this one. Yeah, it was something different than what we had gotten in all the rest of them. Everything else felt like, can't you put this in the story? Mm-hmm. And that's, I guess you're saving pages, but if you want prose, you read a prose book. I've always liked putting those things into subplots or just getting little snippets of knowledge and these kind of pieces of information in the dialogue. But I guess with this one, it actually was kind of funny.
Yeah, it was more playful.
Yeah.
I dug that.
Yeah.
Whereas Excalibur had poetry, I was like, get this out of here. It's like, give me some Braddock family history or something, because I'm confused by all this. What is this poetry doing here?
Yeah. And they did the wanted sign, and then they did do some of the info dump with like explaining benevolence, the space station and whatnot. But I just wish there was a little bit stronger art, a little bit stronger, a little more bold art. Like they were, I don't know, the artist felt like he was scared to put in hard lines.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody find it kind of a strange juxtaposition between Hawks and Pox or X-Men, which are not fun? They're great, but they're not fun. The characters aren't fun. They're very serious and caustic type of written characters. But then I'm seeing like in New Mutants and stuff and Marauders, everything's supposed to be like old X-Men fun all of a sudden, and it feels strange to me.
So I like that each series kind of has its own feel to it. Like X-Men is kind of your straight X-Men title. Marauders is like a swashbuckling fun comic. Excalibur is your mythological magical realm type of stuff. X-Force is your hardcore, like dirty, kind of comic book. So I kind of dig that they all have their own vibe for it, and it's got something for something different for everyone to enjoy. And it sounds like Fallen Angels is going to be like the outsiders, the outcasts. Maybe that have some information. I think that's going to be good too. What do you think about each series having its own like tone, Doc?
I like it. I really do. Now the one thing I did want to point out still on New Mutants 1, and this is something that's just been a problem in modern comics in general, is it had a lot of the dialogue and everything, and then just conversations and this and that, but then they skipped the big fight where the whole team got knocked out until and half of them had to surrender while the rest were knocked out. Like, you skipped the good part.
Yeah.
That really irritated me. But sorry, I got distracted by that. What was your question again?
Oh, it's about the each series having its own tone. Like, you have a more fun, lighthearted Marauders. You got the magical realm in Excalibur, the nitty, dark, dirty kind of stuff in X-Force. Do you like that each one feels different?
Yes, I do. They all need to have a unique feel to them. Otherwise, you're just reading one monthly book written by 6 writers, and it's basically the way that Uncanny was along the early part of the relaunch that everybody hated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I do want to ask you before this one last question before we sign off. A lot of people in my comments were talking about Beast killing a guy. He absolutely did. What did you think about Beast's claws being so bloody and him kind of being bloodthirsty?
Yeah, that's not Beast. Beast has claws, but really goes out of his way to not use them. And it's a big deal when he does. Mm-hmm. He did it with like the last time he really unleashed was like Cassandra Nova. Like way back in Morrison's run, he let out his beast side because she couldn't control that. And that's something that he just doesn't do. He's all about, being much more cerebral. And him using his claws like that just wasn't Beast. It's not Hank.
So do you agree with me that Krakoa is having an effect on these people and it's changing who they are?
It has to at this point, because otherwise these just aren't the X-Men anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They're whatever. I mean, they're a cool idea that Hickman had, but he's it's the equivalent of the way that Dark Knight, or not Dark Knight, Batman Begins was. Batman Begins was Christopher Nolan having a really good crime trilogy story that he wanted to tell, and nobody funding it unless he turned it into a Batman movie, so he just shoehorned Batman in as the main character.
Yeah. But isn't this kind of like an homage to the original introduction of Krakoa, where it was controlling people's minds? It kind of sent Cyclops off to go sucker his friends and bring him back more food and kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's, I feel like that's maybe what they're doing, except for, Jesus Christ, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Well, yeah, it's like Charles thinks he's in control, but he's in control of nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe if they're going that way, that'd be awesome. Mm-hmm. I really question anybody's judgment in somehow thinking that Krakoa, oh, well, he's a good guy now.
Just misunderstood.
No, it's still Krakoa, man.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Paley. I know I cut you off earlier. What were you saying? I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, you combine that with the copies of copies of copies.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, I can see how it's changed the X-Men from what they were. And the thing is, will we ever get the original X-Men back then?
Well, I hope so. I think that's the point.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm just wondering, where will the originals come from then?
I wonder whether or not Xavier has a backup of all of them in their original form, because he has 5 redundancies. Maybe one of them has the originals, and he actually even blocked his own mind from knowing that. He might have built a 6th.
Yeah.
So I do want to say this to all the wonderful viewers that we have. This is just a taste of what you're going to get next weekend. We're going to do an Adamantium hour because all the new number 1s on Dawn of X are going to be out. We're going to dive way deeper into all the X-Men and really get into that nice, all that sweaty stuff that you really want to talk about for X-Men. And Doc, of course, is going to be there. And I think I got a few other people on the panel that you'll enjoy as well. But I think we're going to wrap this up right here. And we're going to give our weekly comic recommendations, unless someone else has something to say.
Well, there was one comment in the comment section that, Corsair's personality being a huge change from his fatherly disposition. This feels more like Corsair than, Hickman's Corsair in X-Men 1 did. This feels much more like Corsair.
Corsair's always been mercenary. I mean, he's just like you mess with him, he'll dump you.
Yeah, he's always been trying to have a relationship with his son that he never had. And so he's always a little different around Scott, but when he's out in space, this is who he is. And he is a space pirate. He was Star-Lord before Star-Lord was Star-Lord.
Nice. All right, Doc. What are you recommending for our viewers this week?
Actually, I'm going to recommend. Actually, you know what? Come back to me.
All right, Lance. What are you recommending to the viewers this week?
I had the opportunity to check out a advanced copy of Vault's Black Stars Above by Lonnie Nadler. And I have some pages from it. There we go. That's the cover on one of the sides there, and some of the interiors. What it is it's a very brooding, methodical reinterpretation of a Lovecraft type of story. It does have a lot of setup in this first issue, but you can kind of see the plot devices of maybe Lovecraft's Pandora's box of his imagination maybe being opened, and there were some great horror sequences in the comic itself, visually pretty frightening stuff. And then you also had the art, I think, set the tone beautifully, where it was very well defined, like anything Vault seems to do, except for Money Shot, which shouldn't be spoken about. It has a full script, multiple drafts, I think, before it goes to print, and the art, they take their time. Vault is a quality company, and more often than not, when I read one of their books, I absolutely love it. This will be a 5-issue mini, and it's just, if you like H.P. Lovecraft stories, if you liked Providence from Alan Moore, absolutely don't let this one slip by you. You're going to want to get issues of this. And I've seen that Vault takes a while getting their trades out, so I personally can't wait for the trades. I have to get the floppies. So that would be it. Black Stars Above. Give it a shot. It'll be out on Wednesday.
Well, speaking of those wonderful words of Vault, I got this Savage Sword of these Savage Shores. It's from Ram V and Sumit Kumar, and it is fantastic. It's like Bram Stoker goes to India. It's one of the coolest comics you'll ever read. It's what Tom King wishes he was as a writer. Just the quality of the writing and the way the prose and everything are done, and the art is like top notch. But yes, Vault is amazing. The plot's really great. Resonant is excellent, and these Savage Shores are all off the charts. So you should definitely be reading Vault.
This one was also great too. That's where I got the preview from. The plot, kind of like a Edgar Allan Poe Swamp Thing kind of mixture. The writing reminded me a little bit of Stephen King, in a very good way. Old Stephen King, and yeah, Vault. I mean, anything Vault solicits, I take a good hard look at.
Mm-hmm. All right, Paley, what are you recommending at the store?
Okay, X-Force #1 was the pick of the week. We just had all the mutant books up there, as picks, because they're selling like hotcakes, and we got to get them. You got to kind of, make hay while the sun shines. But my personal pick is coming up. This next week is Spawn 302. Buy Spawn. It's really, really good.
No, it was this week.
Huh?
It was this week. Spawn 302.
Oh, it was. That's right.
I was about to say, I think I read that.
That's right. I was thinking it's coming week. No, you're right. I've not read it yet. I do have it. I do have my copy of this shop though. But buy it. The whole series is, this whole lead in. The new events happening right now. starting off with this issue, and buy it. It's great. $3. You can't beat it. And this is Capullo is really firing on all cylinders, and I'm just very much enjoying it. So do that.
Well, 302 is Jason Sean Alexander. Capullo's back to DC.
He did the cover. Well, Capullo did the covers for 302. But
Jason Sean Alexander's Spawn is also quite excellent. He's definitely grown in with the series. All right, what else we got? We got the Real Comic Stacks giving you some recommendations for next week. X-Men number 2, Fallen Angels number 1, Guardians of the Galaxy number 11, and Invaders number 11.
I never gave mine yet.
I know. We're getting to you, buddy.
All right, bro.
Lance wants you to follow him at The Real Lance Man and Let's Talk Comics on Twitter. And Doc, what are your recommendations?
All right, I'm going to go with a little bit of back issues, a little bit of current. I'm going to go with Punchline number 9 that came out this week. I still love Matthew Weldon's stuff. The series is just fun. You know, it's from Antarctic Press. It's just a good series. X-Force 1 that came out this week. Definitely Fallen Angels number 1 that's coming out next week. And 2 back issues. 2 back issue runs. If you can find this, it's the Wolverine Havoc Meltdown. It was 4-issue prestige run from back in the 80s. It was just a good kind of standalone story. It happens around the time where the X-Men are dead, but the world thinks the X-Men are dead.
That's the one that had the artwork that was just wild and psychedelic.
Oh yeah, it was nuts. It was Walt Simonson, Louise Simonson, 2 other. They had it was all painted interiors, but 2 different pencilers depending on who the scene was regarding, who was focused on. Definitely recommend that. It's really good. You could probably pick it up on $1 bins.
Yeah, it's a visual feast. I would call it.
Yeah, it's nuts. They did some really good use of photo reference and actual photos in it that didn't look out of place. It wasn't jarring. The way that they did the effects on it, it looked really cool. And this is before the era of a lot of computer effects too. So it's really, really cool. And the other one, it's totally off the board. Has nothing to do with anything we were talking about today. But if you can go and find it, and you can I've been finding a lot of the issues in $1 bins recently. Planetary by Warren Ellis and John Cassaday. If you've never read it, go read it. It's 27 issues, I believe. And it is pretty much Warren Ellis's love letter to 20th century fiction. It's mostly individual standalone stories that you can read out of order, but there is an overarching plot up until the last couple issues that all kind of comes together. And there's a subplot that goes through the whole series. And it's kind of like if the Fantastic Four were the bad guys. But it's, one issue's an homage to 1950s sci-fi movies. Another one's an homage to, John Woo Hong Kong cinema. Another one might be an homage to Vertigo. Another one might be an homage to Victorian, early 20th century monster movies. It's really, or monster fiction. It's really, really good. Go find it. You can pick them up out of order, read them out of order. It doesn't matter. It's good. Nice. Go find it. Or you can find the trades, and it's also available in 2 volumes of the Absolute editions. If you really like that kind of oversized hardcover with the slipcase and everything. Yeah, definitely worth it.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Doc. And building on what Skip and Tosh has put into the chats here, I recently did a review on Brian Michael Bendis's Legion of Superheroes #1. If you like your West extra salty, I definitely recommend you go check that out. And do not read that comic because it's terrible. One of the worst comics of the year, but not the worst, and not even the worst by Brian Michael Bendis. He's actually had a worse comic this year called Legion of Superheroes Millennium #1. But go watch that video. I think you're going to love it. This week, I'm recommending Undiscovered Country #1 by Scott Snyder, Charles Soule, and Giuseppe. Well, I'm just going to call him Camo. Is fantastic. If you have a place in your read pile where East to West has gone away, you don't have The Walking Dead, you want that cool indie comic that you know is going to be that long run. Scott Snyder has already said this is like a 3-year run. It's going to have at least 36 issues. I can't recommend this one. Well, I can. X-Force #1 was better, but this one I really highly recommend. It's a great comic, and I think you'll enjoy it. It is not the Trump allegory people thought maybe it would be. That the creative team never said it was, and I will definitely highly recommend it. It's an excellent comic. Also, Ghost Rider #2. If you're not on the Ed Brisson Ghost Rider train, go check it out. It's excellent, and you'll definitely like it, especially if you're a Ghost Rider fan. But I think if you just like cool, gnarly, like 90s style comics, it's probably for you as well. Next week is actually really huge. I got to bring this list up. We got Fallen Angels #1 that we've talked about, but Punisher Soviet by Garth Ennis is coming out finally. And then we have the Dollhouse Family with a terrific writer. I believe his name's Mike Carey. I'm not really big on the Hill House comics like Lance is, but definitely checking that one out. That guy's a great writer. And also Folklords by Matt Kent, probably the most underrated writer in all comics. And I think you will love that as well if you like fantasy storytelling.
Hey, Wes, is that Punisher Soviet? Is that the one that's art done by Goran Parlov?
No, it's Jason Burrows.
Oh, okay. Never mind then.
And unlike his Moon Knight run, they actually allowed him to ink himself, because that's what basically killed his run on Moon Knight, was they started rushing his schedule and then putting inkers on, and they destroyed his art.
Ah, okay. Sorry.
So this will be the nice, clean version of Jason Burrows that you like to see.
Yeah.
It's gonna look great.
Awesome.
All right, and if you like X-Men, Reels Comic Stacks has his X-Men #2 preview video. It's loading up right now, so if you need that on your Sunday, or I guess it's Saturday still, right?
Yep.
If you need that on your Saturday, the preview's coming out, and I will have a preview of some other stuff on my channel as well this weekend. I want to say thank you very much to anyone that gave super chats. Very much appreciate that. We're a growing channel here, and we have an expansion in the future, and we have a lot of big plans. And every dollar helps. Whether it be super chats or if you want to go to our coffee page and donate there, there's a link in the description below. And if you want to join our Discord, hey, you on our Discord?
Pardon? Yes, I am. Mm-hmm.
All these guys right here are in the Discord. If you want to talk to the Comics Aficionados, talk comic books, movies, TV, we talk about everything in the Discord. So go up and join that right now, and we have a great time on there, and we really, really appreciate it. And in the future, not this weekend, but in the future, we are going to start doing a little bit of an after show, an after party where we can go there and discuss all the stuff we talked about as a little family. We really appreciate everyone being here. Doc, where can people follow you on social media?
@ScienceJesus on Twitter.
Boom. Lance, where can people follow you?
Outside of the Twitter, I started a YouTube channel that's we're trying to get more videos out. I put 2 out last week. It's just Lance K on YouTube. And I'm still working on it. I'm still working on my presentation a little bit, so bear with me.
We all go through it, my friend. You got to start somewhere. Pele, where can people follow you?
You can find me on Twitter at @just_Pele. Tend to talk comics and politics. Don't pull punches. If it gets a little bit preachy, not really preachy, if it gets a little too political, you can always follow me on Instagram, which I also recommend, @just_Pele, where it's a lot of new acquisitions for the shop and for my personal collection. And sometimes I show some of the books from my dad's old collection on there as well. And we talk about comics. And if you have any questions about grading or comic values or anything like that, just hit me up and I'll see what I can do.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I want to give a special shout out to Nalo. He's one of the supporters on our coffee page. We very much appreciate the support and all the things that you're doing for us, and you're helping us grow. Major props to you. And also thank you very much to Fiona Wolf. She is a comics aficionado, been on the channel before. Real Comic Stacks has his own YouTube channel. He is also a comics aficionado, as well as, I think we had, whatever. I'm going to say shout out to Dane Barrett because he's just a damn good guy and one of my best commenters and definitely a regular on the channel. Thank you all very much, everybody. Salamat po. And I'm out.